I've got a weakness. Chocolate. That's my weakness. I love chocolate, particularly chocolate chip cookies. I love chocolate chip cookies. I love eating them so much, but I also love even baking them. I mean, as a result of my incredibly insane sweet tooth, I've become great at baking chocolate chip cookies. My kids say they're the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever had. I'd have to probably agree. They're pretty darn good. Oh my gosh. So this desire of mine is insane. I've had it all my life, but I also have another desire. And that other desire is, well, I want to become a bit healthier. I want to get into better shape. And you can probably sense where this is going. These two desires are in direct conflict with each other. How can I have chocolate chip cookies or more chocolate chip cookies and yet get into better shape? I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to end up being a life struggle of mine. Oh gosh, I don't know how I'm going to solve that problem. Nonetheless, you can probably appreciate the phenomenon I'm talking about, right? This idea of conflicting desires. I think we see it everywhere, right? We see it in our personal lives. We also likely see it in the workplace, right? In my work, I deal with government agencies and we support government agencies, particularly the government transportation authorities. And this phenomenon is no stranger to that environment as well. Let's take a closer look at what these government transportation authorities are doing for the general public, for you and I. You know, they're mandated to do quite a lot, as you might imagine, right? I'm just going to focus on a few of those things. The cars that you and I own or get ridden around in, they need roads to be driven on. Just like your bike needs a path to be ridden on, or just like the tunnel that needs to be built for the train to have access through the hill, for example. Like there's lots of examples of infrastructure that needs to be built, designed and built. And it's these government transportation authorities, of course, who do that, right? They design and build this infrastructure so that you and I can get from where we are to where we want to go. It's the ability to provide us mobility so we can move about the city or about our places as we see fit. So it's this infrastructure that needs to be built so that you and I can get around it. Now, I think many of us have probably experienced a bad road or a road in bad condition, I should say. So these government authorities are also tasked with maintaining the infrastructure in usable condition. And it's not just about physical infrastructure. Think about a transit system, right? A city may be growing and evolving, and the needs of the people of that city to get from A to B also grows and evolves as the city grows and evolves. And so the public transportation system needs to grow and evolve with that. So there's transit planners, who are planning the transit systems within our urban environments. They are also part of that government authority that is performing all the planning and infrastructure building. There's also another element as well. Think about road safety. This is, of course, as you might imagine, huge. There's a reason pedestrians aren't allowed to walk on freeways, right? Because that would be disastrous for both the pedestrians and the vehicles. There needs to be this thing called mode separation. Separate the people or separate the modes where necessary, such as keep pedestrians off the freeways, or you've probably heard about protected cycling facilities so that you have this dedicated cycling path, keeping it separate from the roads to minimize collisions, right? All of this serves to keep the road users safe, or the transportation system users safe. Humans will continually make mistakes, right? So until humans are no longer the pilots of our vehicles, we need to make sure that the systems that we build or the infrastructure that we build is built in a way that when humans do make mistakes, we don't pay with our lives. That's profound and very, very serious. So it's the government transportation authorities that are tasked with ensuring that that happens. They have quite a lot of responsibilities, as you might imagine, and these are just a few of those. Now, think about this government transportation authority from the perspective of the general public. When they look or perceive this authority, they may see one government, right? They may see the government. They often call it the government. And, on one side of the coin, they may be right? It is the government that does this. But those of us who work within this industry or serve this industry, we know that that's not quite the truth. Within the government, right, there are many different departments, and each department, for the most part, does its own thing. You may have a planning department, you have a transit department, you have a maintenance department, you have a public works department, you have an engineering department, you have all sorts of different departments. I can keep naming them, but you'll find that these departments are relatively autonomous within that organization. And, to a certain degree, that's a good thing because I believe that if you put too much control on a large environment, it stifles innovation. So the fact that these departments are able to do their own thing and make their own mistakes and learn from their own mistakes, that allows them to deliver innovations to the rest of us. And that's a good thing, right? But on the other side of the same coin, if everybody was completely rogue, well, that leads to a lot of wastage and, budget that is wasted, and you have a lot of effort and energy. All of this stuff really comes down to waste. But most importantly, when mistakes are made, then the other departments within an organization, they may not be able to learn from those mistakes. Or better yet, when successes are generated, other departments may not be able to leverage those successes. So this siloed nature, this idea of working in your own business silo, there is some good to that, but I think they can collaborate far better in order to generate even more successes for the rest of us. Let me paint a picture of one of these hypothetical successes for you, right? Let's imagine we're in an urban zone, city, and there's a very large road going through a main corridor, very popular corridor, okay? So it's a big road, probably built 40 years ago. It's got 3 lanes in one direction, 3 lanes in the other direction, 60-kilometer-an-hour speed limit. There's a lot of commercial zones on the edges of this street. So it's very busy, very popular, very fast. Now, planning department within the city knows that there's going to be an increase of population coming in, and so they approve a zoning change, and suddenly we have mixed high-density residential and commercial properties being zoned on this street. So now that means we're going to have people living here, we're going to have condos, we're going to have families, we're going to have businesses, we're going to have all of this happening over here. So the transit department hears of this and they say, well, if we're going to have all these different people here, I think I want to be able to put a light rail transit down this stretch. But we don't have budget for a light rail transit, so we can't quite go there, but I do know that we need to improve this stretch. Safety hears about this zoning change and they say, well, 60 kilometers an hour is too fast for all the families and children that are going to be in the area, so we're going to lower the speed limit down to 40 kilometers an hour. Better for the pedestrians, but I would argue the drivers are probably not happy with that. Nonetheless, that's what safety says, so they hold a big stick. So for the most part, it's going to happen. The maintenance department knows that they've scheduled and budgeted for a full pavement rehabilitation the following year for that stretch of road because the pavement needs a bit of a rehabilitation. So then the planning department comes to us and says, we have this budget and it's been approved for a full pavement rehabilitation. What if, instead of changing or rehabilitating everything, we take those 6 lanes and bring it down to 4 lanes of traffic and then make that 3rd lane on either side into a dedicated cycling or maybe a shared pedestrian cycling facility? That might be a good idea. So they go ahead to council and that gets approved. So now this entire corridor is changing a little bit. We now have 2 lanes of traffic in either direction, a dedicated and separated, protected pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. Safety then hears about this change and says, well, since the pedestrians and vehicular traffic is going to be separated, we can push the speed limit back up to 50 kilometers an hour. Hey, that's not bad. That's pretty good for the drivers, actually. And of course, transit's looking at this and saying, well, now we have all these people and bicycles. What we need to do is we need to make sure that since we didn't have the budget for a light rail, we need to make sure that all the buses that are going to come through here have the ability to accommodate cyclists and their bicycles. So what we're going to do is we're going to probably increase the frequency, make sure we have the right vehicles, and probably add a couple extra stops in there. Well, that actually sounds like a pretty good urban success, wouldn't you say? That's a great example of urban mobility or an improvement to urban mobility in a corridor that was a result of collaboration. And those kind of collaborations do happen. We've seen this kind of stuff happen all over the place. Unfortunately, most of these type of scenarios are politically driven. And perhaps if the data that supported that kind of transformation could be more widely accessible and usable by all these organizations or all these different departments, they wouldn't need to be politically driven, and we'd be able to see far more of those successes being data-driven. So why don't we see more of these successes coming out of collaboration? Perhaps it's because people like their chocolate chip cookies a bit too much. Much like myself, I struggle with breaking out of the habit of enjoying too many chocolate chip cookies, even though I want to get into better shape, I want to be able to eat healthier, I want to be able to lose some weight. All of that still exists, and I know that's what I need to do. And I also know in order to accomplish that, I have to eat less chocolate chip cookies, but yet still I cannot bring myself to do that. It's a habit. Government organizations have these departments that have existed. And like I said before, they exist for some good reason. But those departments have habitually created environments where data sharing amongst those different departments is not something that's commonly done. So there needs to be an organizational shift to help the individuals who work in these departments start to collaborate more, be more data driven. Now, it's happening. It's not like it's not, it absolutely is happening. But I believe that technology can help accelerate that so that we can achieve a faster data-driven evolution. Now, like I said, technology is not the answer, but it can certainly help. And that's what me and my team are interested in doing. We want to be able to put together or put in place a technology so that all the different stakeholders in all of the different departments at these government transportation authorities can collaborate with their data and start learning from others' mistakes, improving on others' successes, and basically earning value for the entire organization together. Be more data-driven. And through technology, we can help accelerate that organizational change. My name is Arif Rafiq. I am the Transportation Industry Manager with Esri Canada, and me and my team, we're here to help Canadian governments evolve the way they manage their transportation systems.